For more than 200 years, the South Caucasus has not been a region of development, but rather a playground for foreign powers. Here, empires have waged wars, redrawn borders, signed treaties over the heads of the people, set societies against each other, and left behind minds that create a delayed explosion effect. TodayPress TV reports that these thoughts were shared by Professor of Political Science at Khazar University, Ramis Yunus, on his Facebook account. The professor stated that the Russian Empire, Iran, and later the Soviet Center turned the region into a tool for their grand strategies, and the conflict was used for many years as a model of managed instability. That is why what is happening today between Azerbaijan and Armenia is not just a peace process, it is the dismantling of the imperial legacy. In 2020, Azerbaijan changed the course of history, not with statements, resolutions, or appeals for mercy, but with real power. Azerbaijan's restoration of control over all its territories completely destroyed the previous status quo, which for decades had been presented as the only alternative in the South Caucasus. The concept of peace through strength is no longer just a theory. It has become a fact. Victory on the battlefield changed the language of diplomacy. Without it, no negotiations would have been possible. This is the main lesson for the entire post-Soviet space. End quote. The political analyst emphasized that weakness neither commands respect nor creates stability. Weakness invites intervention and perpetuates conflict. Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, all of them live in a reality where frozen crises were created precisely for the purpose of control. Only a strong state, a consolidated society, and a combat-ready army can create the conditions for peace. Azerbaijan's success is clear proof of this. According to him, the peace achieved between Baku and Yerevan is a serious blow to the powers that have managed the conflict for many years. Russia built its influence through mediation in crises. As for Iran, it maintained tension to create a balance. The peace achieved with the active role of the U.S. means a direct shrinking of the sphere of influence of the old imperial model. When neighbors reach a direct agreement, there is no need for a big brother anymore. Ramis Yunus noted that the decision of the Azerbaijani parliament regarding changes to the Nakhchivan constitution, which envisions the denunciation of the Moscow and Kars treaties, gives the process a special historical significance. 100 years ago, the region was defined by the logic of imperial division. Today, Azerbaijan is demonstrating that the era of those treaties has come to an end. This is a symbolic and political expression of a new stage in which the region acts not as an object, but as a subject. 100 years later, the historical account is being settled. The professor added that power is measured not only by the ability to reject old agreements, but also by the ability to offer peace. Official Baku extended a hand as the victor, and in Yerevan, this hand was accepted. This is not a sign of weakness, but a strategic calculation, because true peace is made by states that understand the cost of future conflict. End of quote. The analyst stated that the concern of circles who gain political capital from the conflict is precisely related to this. For years, politicians who built their careers on harsh rhetoric suddenly started talking about values. But values cannot be an election. Where were these voices when hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis were expelled from their lands? If human rights are universal, then compassion must be universal too. Otherwise, this isn't morality, it's just a tool of pressure. He also emphasized that double standards are applied when it comes to separatism. When Madrid prosecuted Catalonia's leaders, it was considered the rule of law. But when Azerbaijan defends its constitutional order, different standards come into play. Territorial integrity is either a principle or just an empty statement. Ramis Yunus, referring to the Armenian Prime Minister's statements about sovereignty, also criticized attempts by third countries to interfere. If Armenia's foreign policy priorities should be determined by its own security and sovereignty interests, by what right do third countries try to impose a different agenda? Sovereignty is the right to make independent decisions. It is impossible to be more pro-Armenian than the Armenian state itself. The political analyst finally noted that peace between Baku and Yerevan will lead to the normalization of Armenia-Turkey relations and the region's exit from a state of constant tension. This means transport corridors instead of front lines, economic interdependence instead of trenches. Peace breaks old patterns and renders meaningless those who exist on perpetual conflict. The South Caucasus today shows that a state capable of defending itself is also capable of making peace. In the region, the era of empires ends not with declarations, but with real decisions. Today, there is power in the region, and that means there is also a real chance for peace. The professor concluded his thoughts with the words of France's 18th president, Charles de Gaulle. Without power, politics is nothing but good intentions. End of quote. Assessment by educator Namik Abbasov. TodayPress TV.